Let me share something with you. True attraction is rarely about superficial qualities like physical appearance, social standing, or even charming words. It runs much deeper than that. It's rooted in how you position yourself in the eyes of others. Most men falter because they focus on outward pursuits, seeking approval, validation, and attention, without realizing that these efforts only serve to diminish their value. Instead of creating an unspoken allure, they chase, plead, or give up entirely. Here's the harsh reality. Chasing rarely works. Why? Because it communicates lack, not strength. You may believe she's out of your league, or perhaps she's already shown signs of disinterest. But here's a truth many fail to grasp. Women, like anyone else, are influenced by what they perceive, not necessarily what they initially feel. Even someone who seems indifferent or dismissive can be drawn to you when you shift how you present yourself. This isn't about trickery or manipulation. It's about mastering a deeper understanding of human nature and cultivating the qualities that naturally command respect and attention. At the heart of attraction lies an essential truth that echoes the wisdom of ancient Stoicism. Control what you can and detach from what you cannot. Most men, driven by anxiety and insecurity, try to control the uncontrollable, her opinions, her reactions, her attention. They act as though external validation defines their worth, when in reality, lasting attraction is born from within. It's not about persuading her that you're the best option. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need to prove it at all. The moment you stop seeking approval and start living in alignment with your own principles, something changes. Confidence, strength, and composure begin to radiate naturally. You stop acting like she's the prize and begin living as though you are the prize. This subtle yet profound shift is what makes all the difference. If you're ready to break free from the exhausting cycle of chasing and start cultivating an irresistible presence, let's explore how to make that transformation happen. In this guide, we'll go beyond the superficial tactics often peddled by modern dating advice. Instead, we'll delve into timeless principles inspired by Stoic philosophy, principles that teach you to anchor your self-worth in something unshakable, your own character. Whether it's a woman who seems uninterested, someone keeping you at a distance, or a relationship dynamic where you feel powerless, the key is always the same. Become the man who doesn't need to chase, but instead attracts by who he is. Are you ready to stop reacting to her whims and start taking control of your own life? Let's dive in. 1. Stop overvaluing her opinion. One of the quickest ways to lose your sense of personal power, and consequently, a woman's interest, is by placing too much weight on her opinions and reactions. Many men unknowingly fall into the trap of constantly seeking validation, whether by trying to say the right things, meticulously crafting their behavior to avoid offense, or anxiously monitoring her every response. This mindset is rooted in insecurity, and insecurity is the antithesis of attraction. The more you prioritize her approval over your own sense of self-worth, the more you communicate a lack of internal stability. True confidence, as the Stoics taught, comes from within. It's independent of external validation. Here's the harsh truth. When you care too much about how she perceives you, you hand over control of your emotions and self-esteem. You become reactive, bending yourself to fit her expectations, and in doing so, you diminish your own value. Women, and people in general, are naturally drawn to those who exude inner strength and self-assurance. This is because confidence signals emotional independence, a trait rooted in self-respect. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Applying this principle means detaching your sense of worth from her fluctuating opinions and focusing instead on cultivating a steady, grounded mindset. But let's be clear, detachment doesn't mean indifference or arrogance. It's about freeing yourself from the need to constantly prove your value. Imagine you're on a date, and she doesn't react the way you hoped. Perhaps she seems disinterested or distracted. The insecure man panics, scrambling to win her approval by trying harder, talking more, or adjusting his behavior. The man grounded in Stoic philosophy, however, remains calm, recognizing that her reaction is not a reflection of his worth. He stays true to himself, confident that he doesn't need to seek validation from anyone because he already knows his value. A practical example of this principle can be seen in how you handle communication. Imagine you text her, and she doesn't reply immediately. The average guy might double text, overthink the situation, or question whether he did something wrong. The man who values himself waits patiently, understanding that his sense of self isn't contingent on her prompt response. When she finally replies hours later, instead of reacting with frustration or desperation, he responds with composure. "No worries, I figured you were busy." This response communicates self-confidence and emotional stability, subtly signaling that while he values her time, he doesn't depend on it for his happiness. When you stop overvaluing her opinion, you naturally project an air of self-sufficiency and calm. Women are drawn to men who don't crumble under social pressure, who don't anxiously seek approval, and who stand firm in their beliefs. You become a challenge, someone she has to work to understand and impress. In a world where most people are desperately trying to win approval, being the man who doesn't need it sets you apart. Ultimately, the goal isn't to dismiss her completely, but to cultivate a mindset where your self-worth is unshakable. By detaching your identity from her reactions, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of chasing validation and step into the role of a man who commands respect, not through words, but through presence. This is how you shift the dynamic from chasing her approval to being someone she naturally gravitates toward. When you stop overvaluing her opinion, you reclaim your power, your confidence, and most importantly, your sense of self. 2. Focus on building your own value. If you want to attract someone genuinely, especially a woman who initially seems uninterested, the first step is to stop focusing on her and start focusing on yourself. Too many men fall into the trap of centering their lives around impressing a woman rather than improving themselves. They pour all their energy into trying to be what they think she wants, without realizing that true attraction stems from being a man of substance, a man who continuously works on his own value. In Stoic philosophy, the concept of self-mastery is paramount. It's not about seeking external validation, but about cultivating internal excellence. Here's a hard truth. If you don't value yourself, neither will she. Focusing on your own value means committing to personal growth in all areas of life, intellectually, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. This isn't about superficial changes or putting on a facade of confidence. It's about becoming genuinely better, stronger, and more fulfilled as a person. When you prioritize your own development, you automatically project an aura of self-assuredness that others can't help but notice. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Consider this. Are you living a life that excites you? Or are you merely existing in a cycle of routine and mediocrity? Are you pursuing meaningful goals, engaging in passions, and developing skills that enrich your life? Or are you fixated on seeking attention and approval? A high-value man doesn't live to gain someone else's admiration. He lives to fulfill his own potential. Whether it's advancing in your career, cultivating a hobby, or committing to physical fitness, your focus should always be on creating a life that feels abundant, one where you don't need someone else to complete you, because you are already whole. Here's a practical scenario. Imagine you're interested in a woman, but she seems distant. Instead of bombarding her with messages or constantly trying to make plans, shift your energy inward. Start hitting the gym, learning a new skill, or deepening your knowledge in an area of personal interest. Over time, this dedication to personal improvement will not only boost your confidence, but also change the way others perceive you. She might start to notice your quiet transformation, perhaps through a change in your demeanor, a new hobby you casually mention, or the way you carry yourself with more purpose. Suddenly, you're no longer the guy who's constantly available and eager. You've become someone intriguing, someone she wants to know more about. When you focus on building your value, you also shift the power dynamic. Instead of waiting around, hoping for her to see your worth, you're actively creating it. And here's the beauty of it. When you invest in yourself, you don't just attract one person's attention. You become magnetic to anyone who appreciates strength and authenticity. The pursuit of self-improvement becomes a reward in itself, not a means to an end. Remember, Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, and the most significant thing you can control is your own development. By centering your energy on becoming the best version of yourself, you stop relying on external sources for validation. This quiet confidence, rooted in genuine growth, makes you stand out in a world where most people are chasing superficial approval. You no longer have to convince anyone of your value. It becomes self-evident in the way you live your life. Ultimately, the goal is not to become someone she desires, but to become someone you respect. When you shift your focus inward, when you build a life of purpose, passion, and fulfillment, you embody the principles of Stoicism: self-mastery, discipline, and integrity. And when you do that, attraction ceases to be something you chase. It becomes something you naturally draw in by simply being the man you were always meant to be. 3. Don't chase. Create an air of mystery. Chasing is perhaps the most common mistake men make when trying to attract someone. In their eagerness to be noticed, they overextend themselves, constantly calling, texting first, or making themselves overly available. What they fail to realize is that relentless pursuit kills curiosity, which is a fundamental element of attraction. People are naturally drawn to what they cannot easily understand, to what leaves space for imagination. The more predictable and accessible you become, the less intriguing you are. To stand out, you must cultivate an air of mystery, an approach deeply aligned with the Stoic practice of self-restraint and moderation. Stoic philosophy teaches us to be in control of our impulses and desires, to act with intention rather than emotion. When you chase someone relentlessly, you are driven by emotional neediness, a desire to be validated, to be chosen. This behavior signals that you lack options and, more importantly, that you lack control over your emotions. Contrast that with the man who is grounded in self-worth and remains composed. He doesn't rush to explain himself or seek constant interaction. Instead, he allows moments of distance, silence, and ambiguity to exist, creating a sense of intrigue. As Epictetus wisely noted, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. The same principle applies to attraction. When there is nothing left to wonder about, interest fades. Creating mystery doesn't mean playing manipulative games or being evasive for the sake of it. It's about holding back just enough to keep things interesting. You don't have to share every detail of your life immediately or always be the first to initiate contact. Instead, focus on living a fulfilling life, one that naturally makes you less available. When you're genuinely busy pursuing your goals, passions, and personal growth, you won't have to pretend to be distant. You will be distant in a meaningful, authentic way. And that's what makes you compelling. For example, when someone asks about your day, resist the urge to give a detailed breakdown of every minor event. A simple, intriguing response such as, "It's been an interesting day. I'll tell you about it sometime," is enough. You leave her wondering, thinking about what might have happened. This subtle act of not oversharing invites curiosity, and curiosity keeps people engaged. Similarly, if she asks about your weekend plans, don't lay out an itinerary. Instead, keep it vague. "I've got a few things lined up. Should be fun." This approach is not about withholding information to create distance, but about showing that your life is full, dynamic, and not centered around seeking her attention. Another way to build mystery is through unpredictability. When you always behave in a consistent, overly predictable manner, texting at the same time every day, always being available when she calls, you remove any sense of excitement. By occasionally breaking routines and doing things on your own terms, you maintain an element of surprise. This doesn't mean being inconsistent or unreliable. Rather, it's about not being entirely predictable. When she doesn't know what to expect, she remains engaged, curious, and interested. At its core, creating an air of mystery is about embodying a life philosophy where you don't seek external approval for your happiness. You live for yourself, guided by your principles and values, and that alone makes you intriguing. When you're secure in your identity and don't feel the need to constantly explain or prove yourself, you naturally evoke curiosity in others. In a world where most people are desperate for attention, being the person who doesn't crave it makes you stand out. Ultimately, the goal isn't to withhold who you are, but to present yourself as someone who is layered and multifaceted, someone worth getting to know. By creating mystery, you invite others to explore those layers at their own pace, fostering a deeper and more meaningful connection. This approach, rooted in Stoic self-mastery, allows you to maintain both your dignity and your individuality, ensuring that attraction is built on genuine interest rather than superficial effort. Stop chasing, start living fully, and watch as others become naturally drawn to the person you are becoming. 4. Master the art of silence. In a world where everyone is rushing to fill every gap in conversation, silence has become an underappreciated and misunderstood tool. Most men feel the need to talk incessantly when they are with a woman, fearing that silence will create discomfort or awkwardness. But here's the truth. Silence, when used with confidence, speaks louder than words. It conveys composure, emotional strength, and an unshakable sense of self. The Stoics, who valued self-control and inner calm above all, understood this well. In fact, Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Mastering silence isn't about withholding speech. It's about choosing your words wisely and knowing when words are unnecessary. Too many men mistake constant chatter for connection, thinking that keeping a conversation alive means talking without pause. This only serves to dilute the impact of your words. True connection, however, comes from a balance, knowing when to speak and, more importantly, when to listen. When you are comfortable with silence, you project confidence and control. You show that you don't need to fill the space to feel valued, because your value isn't derived from external noise, but from an internal sense of peace. Silence creates space for reflection, for both you and her. It gives her room to wonder, to feel curious, and to engage more meaningfully. For example, imagine you're on a date, and there's a moment where the conversation naturally pauses. Most men would feel compelled to fill that gap immediately, fearing that silence signals discomfort. But a man who has mastered the art of silence knows that it can be powerful. He doesn't rush to speak. He lets the pause linger. In that moment, he radiates calmness and self-assuredness. This kind of silence doesn't feel awkward. It feels deliberate. It's a reminder that he is not desperate to seek approval or prove his worth through words. Silence is equally effective in moments of tension or conflict. When a disagreement arises, the average man may feel pressured to defend himself, explain his actions, or immediately resolve the situation. But the Stoic man understands that not every situation requires an immediate reaction. By pausing and allowing silence to work in his favor, he demonstrates emotional maturity. This silence forces the other person to reflect on what was said and often diffuses tension. It shows that he isn't easily rattled or reactive, qualities that are inherently attractive because they signal strength and self-discipline. Another powerful aspect of silence is its ability to create anticipation. When you don't immediately respond to texts or messages, it creates a natural sense of intrigue. It's not about playing games or being manipulative. It's about maintaining a life that doesn't revolve around instant reactions. Imagine you receive a message, and instead of replying right away, you take your time. When you finally respond, it's with a composed and thoughtful message. This shows that you're not eagerly waiting by the phone. You're living your life, and communication with you requires patience and respect. However, mastering silence doesn't mean being distant or emotionally unavailable. It's about knowing when to hold back and when to engage fully. It's about learning that words are powerful, but their power comes from being used purposefully. A man who can sit comfortably in silence, whether alone or in the presence of others, conveys a depth that words alone cannot achieve. He shows that he doesn't fear being misunderstood or overlooked because he knows his worth is not dependent on constant affirmation. Ultimately, silence is a practice of presence and restraint. It allows you to remain centered, even in the midst of uncertainty or chaos. When you master the art of silence, you not only elevate your interactions with others, but also strengthen your relationship with yourself. In a noisy world, silence becomes a symbol of control, calm, and inner strength. And when you embody those qualities, you naturally attract respect, attention, and admiration, not by chasing them, but by quietly becoming someone worth noticing. 5. Trigger her curiosity. One of the most powerful yet overlooked aspects of attraction is curiosity. People are naturally drawn to what they don't fully understand, to what leaves them with unanswered questions. Yet, many men make the critical mistake of laying all their cards on the table too soon, revealing every thought, intention, and detail about themselves from the very beginning. This kills the sense of mystery and leaves no room for intrigue. In the context of Stoic philosophy, maintaining curiosity is about self-restraint, intentional communication, and the confidence to let others wonder about you rather than constantly seeking to explain yourself. The truth is, when you reveal everything about yourself too quickly, you eliminate one of the key psychological elements of attraction: anticipation. As the Stoics often taught, desire is fueled by what is unknown or just out of reach. By making yourself an open book too soon, you deprive her of the excitement that comes with discovery. Instead of fostering interest, you risk becoming predictable, and predictability leads to boredom. The goal is not to withhold who you are, but to reveal yourself gradually, in layers, allowing her to be genuinely curious about the depth of your character. Curiosity isn't triggered by grand gestures or constant attention. It's sparked by subtlety and unpredictability. When you don't rush to answer every question with a long explanation, when you share just enough to intrigue without oversharing, you create space for her mind to fill in the gaps. Imagine she asks about your weekend plans. Instead of providing a detailed breakdown, a simple response like, "I've got something interesting planned. You'll hear about it later," leaves her wondering. This approach is not about being evasive or manipulative. It's about creating a dynamic where she feels compelled to know more about you. Stoicism teaches us to act with intention and purpose. In conversation, this means speaking when necessary, but also knowing when to withhold details. You don't need to broadcast your every move or thought to maintain a connection. In fact, the less you reveal, the more you invite curiosity. Over-explaining or constantly updating her on your life signals a lack of depth, a life that revolves around gaining her attention. On the other hand, a man who speaks sparingly and shares selectively signals that he is centered in himself, living a full and independent life. Curiosity is also about unpredictability. If your actions and responses are always the same, if she can always predict when and how you'll engage, there's no element of surprise, and without surprise, attraction stagnates. The man who keeps things interesting by occasionally breaking routine, changing his patterns, or introducing new topics of conversation keeps her mind engaged. He becomes someone she wants to figure out, someone who feels layered and complex. But let's be clear, Triggering curiosity isn't about playing games. It's about being authentic while maintaining an air of intrigue. It's about living a life so rich and dynamic that others naturally want to be a part of it. If you're constantly focused on growth, learning new skills, exploring new interests, and expanding your horizons, you won't need to force curiosity. It will come naturally because your life itself will be intriguing. This is the essence of Stoic self-development, living fully, with purpose and direction, not for the sake of impressing others, but for the fulfillment of your own potential. Ultimately, when you trigger her curiosity, you shift the dynamic. She becomes more invested, more eager to know you on a deeper level. Instead of you chasing her attention, she starts seeking yours. And here's the beauty. This doesn't just create attraction. It lays the groundwork for a more meaningful connection, one built on genuine interest and engagement. So stop oversharing. Stop trying to be understood completely, and embrace the power of curiosity. When you live a life of depth, purpose, and quiet confidence, you won't need to chase anyone. They'll be drawn to you, compelled by the sense that there's always more to discover. 6. Build emotional tension. Attraction isn't just about physical appeal or clever conversation. It's rooted in emotional tension. This invisible yet powerful force is what keeps a woman thinking about you long after you've parted ways. Most men, however, fail to create this tension because they stick to predictable, surface-level interactions. They prioritize comfort and safety over depth and excitement, unaware that attraction thrives not in the familiar but in the dynamic. Stoicism teaches us that growth lies outside the comfort zone, and the same applies to relationships. Emotional tension isn't about being difficult or unpredictable for its own sake. It's about cultivating a connection that is both engaging and memorable. The key to building emotional tension is balance. If you're always agreeable, always polite, and never willing to challenge her thoughts or opinions, your interactions will lack depth. While kindness and respect are essential, they alone are insufficient to spark genuine attraction. A Stoic man, grounded in his values, is unafraid to respectfully disagree or express a different perspective. This subtle friction, when mixed with warmth and humor, creates a dynamic where she feels stimulated, not bored. It invites her to see you as someone with substance, someone who is confident enough to stand by his beliefs without being rigid. For example, imagine she shares an opinion you don't entirely agree with. Instead of nodding along just to keep the peace, you could respond thoughtfully. That's an interesting point. I see it a bit differently. What do you think about this perspective? This isn't about arguing or proving her wrong. It's about engaging in a conversation that makes her think and feel. It's about creating moments where she's not just hearing your words but experiencing an emotional reaction, curiosity, excitement, or even playful frustration. These moments linger in her mind and build a sense of connection that goes beyond mere words. Emotional tension also comes from pacing, knowing when to push forward and when to pull back. Too many men rush to fill every silence or resolve every moment of uncertainty. But a Stoic man understands the power of pauses. He knows that not every question needs an immediate answer, not every silence needs to be filled. By allowing moments of uncertainty to exist, you create an emotional ebb and flow that keeps interactions intriguing. This kind of pacing mirrors life itself, where moments of intensity are balanced by moments of calm, creating a rhythm that feels natural yet compelling. Another important element of emotional tension is unpredictability. This doesn't mean being erratic or unreliable, but rather introducing subtle variations in your behavior that keep things fresh. If she always knows exactly how you'll respond or what you'll do next, the excitement fades. But if you occasionally surprise her, whether through an unexpected comment, a spontaneous plan, or a playful tease, you create an emotional landscape that's ever-evolving. It's this unpredictability, paired with consistency in your core character, that makes you both exciting and trustworthy. Building emotional tension requires courage. It means stepping out of the comfort of routine interactions and embracing the risk of being truly seen. Too many men play it safe because they fear rejection or awkwardness. But as the Stoics taught, fear is often an illusion, a product of our own minds. To create meaningful connections, you must be willing to take emotional risks. This might mean teasing her in a light-hearted way, confidently expressing your desires, or simply being vulnerable enough to share a personal story. These moments of emotional authenticity are what create lasting tension because they invite her to experience something real. Ultimately, emotional tension is about depth. It's about being a man who is not only interesting but also engaging on an emotional level. When you can evoke a range of feelings, curiosity, excitement, anticipation, you become unforgettable. You're no longer just another person she met. You're someone who made her feel alive, who sparked something she didn't expect. And when you master this art, you won't have to chase anyone. She'll be drawn to you, captivated by the emotional connection you've built. So stop playing it safe. Be bold. Be willing to push boundaries, pace your interactions, and evoke emotions she won't forget. As the Stoics remind us, true growth, and in this case, true attraction, comes from stepping into discomfort and embracing the unknown. In doing so, you'll create not only emotional tension, but also a connection that stands out in a world of fleeting, shallow encounters. 7. Set boundaries and stand firm. Setting boundaries is not just a matter of personal dignity, it's a declaration of self-respect. Too many men make the fatal mistake of sacrificing their values, comfort, and time to please a woman, hoping it will make them more attractive. But in reality, it does the opposite. When you fail to set boundaries, you signal that you lack self-worth, that you are willing to compromise your own well-being just to gain someone else's approval. And without respect, there can be no genuine attraction. The Stoics understood this well, teaching us that a man must live according to his principles, regardless of external pressures. A boundary isn't about controlling others. It's about defining how you expect to be treated. It's about knowing what you will and will not tolerate, and having the courage to walk away when those lines are crossed. This requires a deep understanding of your own value. As Epictetus once said, know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly. When you know your worth, you don't fear losing someone who doesn't respect it, because you understand that true connection can only exist when mutual respect is present. Consider this scenario. You're dating someone who frequently cancels plans at the last minute. The average man, desperate to keep her interest, might let it slide, thinking that being accommodating will make him more appealing. But in doing so, he inadvertently communicates that his time isn't valuable. A man who understands his worth, however, handles the situation differently. He calmly but firmly expresses his boundary. I understand things come up, but I value my time. If you're unsure about your availability, let's plan when you're certain. This approach is neither confrontational nor passive. It's a balanced assertion of self-respect. When you set and enforce boundaries, something powerful happens. You demonstrate that you're not afraid to lose her, and this shifts the dynamic entirely. Suddenly, she sees you as a man who values himself, a man who won't be easily swayed or manipulated. This kind of strength is incredibly attractive because it's rare. Most people are so eager to be liked that they compromise their values without hesitation. But a Stoic man stands firm, guided by his principles rather than fleeting desires. Boundaries also serve another important function. They filter out those who aren't genuinely interested in or compatible with you. If someone disrespects your boundaries repeatedly, they're showing you that they don't value you or what you stand for. In such cases, walking away isn't a loss, it's a gain. You free yourself from a relationship that would only drain your energy and self-esteem. And as harsh as it may sound, Not everyone deserves access to your time and attention. By setting boundaries, you ensure that only those who respect you and add value to your life remain in it. But let's be clear, setting boundaries isn't about being rigid or inflexible. It's about knowing when to stand your ground and when to compromise, but always doing so on your terms. It's about creating a balance where you remain open to connection while protecting your sense of self. This is where many men go wrong. They either avoid setting boundaries altogether or become so inflexible that they shut others out. The key is to find the middle path, where you respect yourself without losing the ability to connect with others. Ultimately, setting boundaries is about mastering the art of self-respect. When you know your worth and stand firm in it, you create a life that is aligned with your values. This not only makes you more attractive, but also leads to deeper, more meaningful relationships. You stop chasing approval and start living authentically, guided by a sense of inner strength. And as the Stoics remind us, true strength comes not from controlling others, but from mastering yourself. When you embody this principle, you naturally draw others to you, not because you seek their validation, but because you command respect by the way you carry yourself. 8. Show your confidence, don't tell it. Confidence isn't something you declare. It's something you embody. Too many men fall into the trap of trying to convince others, and themselves, that they are confident by boasting about their achievements or constantly seeking acknowledgement. But here's the truth. Real confidence doesn't require external validation. It's quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in self-awareness. In Stoic philosophy, confidence stems from knowing who you are, what you value, and what you're capable of, without needing to prove it to anyone. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." True confidence reveals itself in action, not in words. It's in how you carry yourself, how you respond to challenges, and how you remain composed under pressure. When you walk into a room, confidence isn't about demanding attention. It's about exuding an energy that naturally draws people in. This kind of presence can't be faked because it's the product of genuine self-respect and inner work. A man who quietly knows his worth doesn't need to announce it. His demeanor, his calmness in the face of uncertainty, and his ability to stand firm in his beliefs speak volumes without him uttering a single word. Think about it. When someone constantly talks about how confident they are, it often comes across as insecurity in disguise. Real confidence isn't loud. It's calm, composed, and self-assured. Imagine you're in a conversation with someone who disagrees with you. An insecure man might feel the need to argue relentlessly, to prove that he's right. A confident man, on the other hand, listens, acknowledges the other person's perspective, and responds thoughtfully without feeling the need to dominate. His confidence allows him to engage without ego because his sense of self isn't threatened by disagreement. Another way to show confidence is through decisiveness. Life is full of choices, and many people hesitate, fearing they'll make the wrong decision. But confidence means trusting your judgment and being willing to take action, even when the outcome is uncertain. When you're decisive, you demonstrate that you trust yourself, and trust is the foundation of confidence. Whether it's choosing where to go on a date or making a life-changing career decision, a man who makes choices without excessive hesitation signals that he's in control of his life. However, showing confidence doesn't mean being arrogant. Arrogance is loud, dismissive, and rooted in a fragile ego. It's an attempt to mask insecurity by inflating one's sense of self. Confidence, by contrast, is humble. It doesn't seek to belittle others or prove superiority. Instead, it quietly asserts itself through authenticity and integrity. A confident man doesn't seek to dominate a conversation or impress everyone around him. He simply shows up as his true self, knowing that those who recognize his worth will naturally gravitate toward him. Stoicism teaches us that confidence comes from within, from living in alignment with our values and striving to be the best version of ourselves. When you cultivate inner strength, when you consistently show up for yourself and do the hard work of self-improvement, confidence becomes a byproduct of that process. You don't need to seek it externally because you've built it internally. You become a man who doesn't need to chase validation because he knows his worth, and that quiet self-assurance is what draws others in. In practical terms, this means focusing less on what you say about yourself and more on how you live your life. Instead of telling someone about your ambitions, show them through your actions. Instead of trying to prove your worth through words, demonstrate it by how you carry yourself. Real confidence isn't about trying to impress. It's about living in a way that naturally commands respect. And when you stop trying to convince others of your value, they'll start noticing it on their own. Ultimately, confidence is about being grounded in who you are. It's about understanding that you don't need to be perfect or have everything figured out to feel worthy. It's about accepting yourself, flaws and all, and trusting in your ability to grow. When you embody this kind of confidence, you won't need to tell anyone you have it. They'll feel it in your presence. And that's the kind of confidence that not only attracts others, but also creates a life of purpose, fulfillment, and strength. 9. Stop trying to be her perfect guy. One of the greatest misconceptions men have is the belief that they need to become the perfect guy in order to win a woman's heart. This idea leads many to exhaust themselves in a futile pursuit of perfection, always trying to say the right things, act the right way, and meet every perceived expectation. But here's the truth. Perfection doesn't create attraction. Authenticity does. When you try to mold yourself into an idealized version of what you think she wants, you lose sight of who you are, and in doing so, you undermine the very qualities that make you unique. The Stoics remind us that true strength lies in self-acceptance, not in chasing an unattainable ideal. Striving to be perfect is a flawed strategy because it's inherently rooted in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of inadequacy, fear of not being enough. But perfection is an illusion. No one is flawless, and pretending to be will only create a false image that's impossible to maintain. Women, like all people, are drawn to those who are real, who aren't afraid to show their imperfections. When you embrace your true self, strengths, flaws, and all, you project a quiet confidence that's far more compelling than any act of perfection. Trying to be her perfect guy often leads to behaviors that signal insecurity. You may find yourself agreeing with everything she says, suppressing your own opinions to avoid conflict, or constantly going out of your way to please her at the expense of your own needs. These actions don't create respect or attraction. They create dependence. A Stoic man understands that self-respect comes first. He doesn't compromise his identity or values for the sake of being liked because he knows that genuine connection can only come from authenticity. Think about it. Would you rather be liked for who you pretend to be or respected for who you truly are? The former might bring temporary approval, but it's hollow and unsustainable. The latter, however, leads to something deeper, real respect and admiration. Being authentic doesn't mean being rude or careless. It means being unapologetically yourself while maintaining kindness and integrity. It means speaking your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, and standing by your values, even when it's inconvenient. For example, if you find yourself in a situation where your opinions differ from hers, don't be afraid to express them respectfully. Too often, men avoid disagreement because they fear it might ruin their chances. But healthy relationships, whether romantic or otherwise, are built on mutual respect, not on complete agreement. By sharing your perspective honestly, you show that you're not trying to conform to an idealized version of what you think she wants. Instead, you're showing her who you truly are, which creates a stronger, more genuine connection. Stoicism teaches us that the pursuit of external approval is futile. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. When you stop chasing perfection and start living in alignment with your true self, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of trying to be good enough for others. You become grounded in your own worth, and that's what makes you stand out, not because you've become someone else's ideal, but because you've embraced the man you already are. Ultimately, being the perfect guy isn't what creates attraction. Being real, being genuine, being someone who knows and respects himself, that's what draws others in. When you stop trying to fit into an unrealistic mold and instead focus on being your best, authentic self, you become someone worth knowing. You no longer seek validation from others because you've found it within yourself. And ironically, when you stop trying to be perfect, you become far more attractive, because real confidence isn't about pretending to be flawless. It's about being comfortable enough to show your flaws without shame. So let go of the need to be her perfect guy. Be yourself, imperfect, evolving, and real. That's the man who not only commands respect but also cultivates deeper, more meaningful connections. 10. Be willing to walk away. The ability to walk away is one of the most powerful demonstrations of self-respect and inner strength a man can have. Yet, it's where most men falter. They cling to situations and people, even those who show little interest or respect, out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of rejection, fear of losing what they've invested in emotionally. But here's the harsh truth. When you're too afraid to walk away, you surrender your power. You become dependent on the outcome, and in doing so, you lose the very strength that makes you attractive. Stoicism teaches us that we must detach from what we cannot control, including how others respond to us, and focus on mastering ourselves. Walking away doesn't mean giving up easily or acting indifferent. It means knowing your worth and refusing to stay in situations where that worth isn't recognized. It's a reflection of self-discipline and emotional resilience. As Epictetus said, "He who is free is he who does not desire or fear anything that is not in his power." When you cling to someone out of desperation, you're no longer free. You've made your happiness dependent on their validation. But when you're willing to walk away, you reclaim your freedom. You send a clear message. I value myself enough not to settle for anything less than mutual respect. Imagine you're in a relationship where the effort is one-sided. You're constantly initiating conversations, planning dates, and investing time, while the other person remains distant or uninterested. The average man, driven by fear of losing her, might double down on his efforts, hoping to win her over through persistence. But a man grounded in self-worth recognizes when his energy is being wasted. Instead of chasing, he steps back and reassesses. If she doesn't reciprocate, he walks away, not out of spite, but out of respect for himself. This willingness to walk away creates a powerful shift in the dynamic. It forces the other person to confront the possibility of losing someone valuable. Many times, this is when true interest surfaces, when she realizes that you won't stay in a situation where you aren't valued. And even if she doesn't come back, you've still won, because you've preserved your self-respect and avoided the trap of emotional dependence. The Stoics teach us that strength comes from within, and the man who can walk away proves that he draws his strength from himself, not from external validation. Walking away isn't about playing hard to get or manipulating someone into chasing you. It's about living with integrity. It's about knowing what you deserve and being unafraid to let go of what doesn't meet that standard. This requires courage, because walking away often means embracing uncertainty. But uncertainty, as the Stoics remind us, is an inevitable part of life. By facing it head-on, you grow stronger and more self-reliant. You stop fearing loss, because you understand that your worth isn't tied to anyone else's approval. In practical terms, being willing to walk away means setting clear boundaries and enforcing them. It means knowing what kind of treatment you'll accept and calmly stepping back when those boundaries are crossed. It also means trusting yourself enough to know that you'll be okay, even if things don't go the way you hoped. This trust isn't built overnight. It's cultivated through consistent effort in becoming a man who lives by his values, pursues personal growth, and finds fulfillment within himself. Ultimately, walking away isn't just an action, it's a mindset. It's about living with the quiet confidence that you don't need to cling to anyone or anything to feel complete. When you embody this mindset, you become a man who is in control of his life, rather than a man who is controlled by his fears. And that, in itself, is incredibly attractive. Women, like anyone else, are drawn to those who know their worth and stand by it unwaveringly. So stop fearing the loss of someone who doesn't see your value. Be willing to walk away when necessary, not as a tactic, but as a reflection of your self-respect. In doing so, you'll find that those who are truly meant to be in your life will respect you more, and those who aren't will fade away, leaving you with the freedom to pursue what truly matters: your own growth, fulfillment, and inner strength. This is how you live according to Stoic principles, by mastering yourself, embracing what you can control, and letting go of what you cannot. Conclusion. At the heart of attraction lies a truth often overlooked. It's not about winning someone over. It's about becoming a person of substance, someone who lives with purpose, integrity, and quiet confidence. When you stop chasing approval and start cultivating self-respect, everything changes. You no longer live as a reaction to others' opinions, but as a man anchored in his own values. This is what the Stoics teach us. True strength comes not from how others perceive you, but from how you carry yourself when no one is watching. Remember, attraction isn't something you force. It's something you inspire by becoming the best version of yourself. Stop placing others on a pedestal and instead focus on building a life that feels rich and fulfilling. When you develop self-discipline, set firm boundaries, and embrace emotional resilience, you naturally draw people to you. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because you radiate the quiet power of someone who knows his worth. But here's the key takeaway. This journey isn't just about relationships, it's about self-mastery. It's about cultivating a mindset where you're no longer controlled by fear, doubt, or the need for validation. It's about living fully, boldly, and authentically, whether someone is watching or not. When you commit to this path of personal growth, everything else, respect, connection, even attraction, follows naturally. If this message resonates with you, if you find value in these principles of Stoicism and personal development, I encourage you to take action, not by chasing external rewards, but by committing to your own growth. And if you want to keep learning and exploring these life-changing ideas, consider subscribing to the channel. Together, we can continue on this path of becoming stronger, wiser, and more grounded individuals. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. What lesson from this video hit you the hardest? I'll be reading every response, and who knows? Your story might inspire someone else to take the first step toward a life of true self-mastery. Thanks for watching, and remember, in the end, it's not about being chosen by others. It's about choosing to live as the best version of yourself. Let's keep growing, learning, and living with intention. See you in the next video.